Welcome to Revlog, where I'm back in the saddle.
Woo!
Grateful to be back with you guys.
No kidding.
Missed you. It's nice to be back in the room with one another.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Thanks. And for my return, we get the story of the unrighteous steward plus
Etc.
Some-
etc.
Do we want to deal with the etc. or do we want to deal with the unrighteous steward? I think that's the parable.
Well,
right?
here's the deal. Depending on which book you pick up, it's either the shrewd one, the dishonest one. I mean, they even label it differently. So,
true. Right.
So is he good?
Is he
bad?
shrewd? Is he dishonest?
Yeah.
I have a theory, but anyway, please.
Oh.
Go ahead.
We want to hear your theory. The whole world wants to hear.
And this is, I wonder if it's just some random theory of life.
Yeah.
Are you talking about this text? Or
Well, I
just-
am.
Okay.
I really am. Yes.
Well, I guess on that, I guess you can get us started then.
Please.
So as we
Okay.
jump in here, Luke 16. So the parable is really kind of 1 through 9, and then there are some other teachings. So you want to help us here? I mean, where do you want to start with
first
this
of all,
parable?
It looks like a veritable grab bag of,
Yeah.
pick your vice. What do you want? What do you got?
There's mostly a money theme,
there's-
but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It is mostly money, but the shrewd manager or the dishonest accountant or whatever you call him, the bumbling bean counter, I don't know, is at the heart of this parable, and he's kind of an anti-hero, sort of, because Jesus certainly spotlights him
Right.
as the hero of the story, with a little asterisk or a question mark. But I think that there is more than just the parable going on, because then you have this dealing with the Pharisees at the end. So I think there is, within that parable, it seems to be the case that he's dealing with some realities about the use of money, and sort of turning on its ear what we think about who's worthy to be the star of a parable and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to. My theory actually focuses on the latter part, where the Pharisees, he begins to turn and he says, whoever is entrusted with a lot is responsible for that. And the Pharisees are well known, of course, to be lovers of money, and the text says that. And they get all the glory and the public acclaim and so forth. And then they scoff at him. I mean, that's a pretty, just a very, very demeaning way of that Luke has of describing that. They're scoffing. They're going, this guy. I mean, they're just sort of looking down. They're condescending. They're really belittling him. And he turns, and it's almost like he's just ramping up, because he starts talking about if you have a lot, you're responsible. You're even more responsible, and so forth. And they're scoffing, and he turns it up even more, and he says, the whole law, is from God, and it's permanent. It's not going to pass away. And they're still kind of scoffing, and then he hits them right where they live, because we know in other texts that they were having this debate about divorce, and they came to him, and they were way on the liberalizing end of divorce, and they said, Moses was their fig leaf, and Jesus said at that time in Matthew, he said, that fig leaf is not going to cover what you're after here, because you are treating marriage capriciously. And it's almost as if Jesus here, and here's my theory, that Jesus says, he gives them a signal, a pretty big hint, actually. He goes, I know what goes on in your little circles, in your little meetings. So I know more about you than you think I do. And I think they heard that, about divorce, he knew exactly the conversations that they were having in their secret meetings, and I think that just left them speechless. That my theory is that they were scoffing, but he went right there and he said, "You want to talk law? I'll talk law. You're dismantling it, and I know you're doing it." So I think it was of a piece with this earlier discourse on this teaching of the shrewd manager. They were looking down at that, and he was basically giving them a sobering reminder that you are the ones whose guilt. I'm using a morally questionable character in this story, but you're the ones whose character is crumbling, and I know what you're about. Anyway, that's what I think.
And he's tied a nice bow around the whole passage there too, isn't he?
Wow. You're just I'm in awe of your.
Well, I've been having with some people this conversation about divorce, and it's just it's a hot button topic.
Yeah, it's just and that is seemingly a conversation and an extended conversation that needs to be had with one verse that seems like it's almost tacked on at the end
Right.
of this,
It just seems like it's just sort of strayed in. Maybe the editors thought, oh, well, it would tack on
So
nicely
you think
here.
that Jesus was taking them out here and then brought them back
I
to
think so.
where they were? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
So as you read this,
Yes.
you don't have to have,
I don't have theories.
you don't have to have
I have no theories.
you don't have
What's
to
your
have
conspiracy
grand
theory?
theories of coming
Something
back
like
around.
this: with great power comes
Great responsibility.
I mean, anybody?
That drifted into my mind.
Okay,
as
I'm not
Okay.
gonna lie. I mean,
Stan Lee and
So-
mighty Marvel heroes.
That's right. So I one of the things that I had to do is kind of take a step back, because as we've been studying here these last several weeks, first of all, you see these Pharisees that say, look at this guy. He associates with sinners, and we've been centering on that. We're grateful that he receives the sinners. And so then he tells these parables about the shepherd that goes after, the woman looking after the lost coin, the father who runs after. Yeah. And so you have this very easy concept of saying, here's the good shepherd, so this is God, this is Jesus searching after us. And then right in the same context, now this may be the same conversation, it may be a little later, but in our reading it follows right after that you have this rich manager. And so it's easy to go, okay, well that's Jesus. And it's he sets up a different...
Clearly not.
Yeah, it's clearly not. But if you're reading these right back to back, you might start out with that and go, wait a minute, Jesus isn't saying that we're going to cheat people or that's not what he's saying here, is it? And where's God in all of this? Because God's not the one going, hey, what's my master owe you?
Let's cook
cut
the
that in
books.
half. Yeah, exactly. And that's the first thing, is to come at this realizing that Jesus is kind of playing a different part in this particular story, because that's always important, if you're trying to assign roles to it. But the other thing is how are we using our money? That's the kind of the low-hanging fruit here, is, are we using our money to influence people, or are we using money to just get ahead? And I think one of the things I find interesting is as Jesus says, these guys know how to take care of each other. And these people of the world are taking care of each other and how they deal with, and that's, I think there's a lot to unpack there.
That's the heart of it, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm even, I've got my brain around it yet, but that to me is what stuck out the most in my reading this time, is just saying, look at this. The guy gets fired, and he realizes, I've got to find what's next for me. And so he goes to people and he makes deals with them, and they're kind of creating this whole economy where they're caring for one another. We don't recommend you.
Right.
Yeah, this is not praise Enron. This is not.
But the thing is, it's again, the world is going to take care of itself in its own way, and are we learning from that? Are we saying, shame on them for the way they do things? Or are we saying, how are we using our resource to engage these people that are out there, that are going to go about their circles, they're going to go about doing their things? Where is our insertion point?
Well, this steward, or accountant or whatever he is, says basically, to your point, he says, the only way I can stay alive is to include other people in on this.
Yeah.
And how does that translate over to the only way we can stay alive is by the including other people, generosity. You know, as you do unto others as you would have others do unto you, and also love people, or all your words about loving God are hollow.
Let me share another theory too. So it's not my
You
theory.
two have missed it completely.
No.
Let me bring us home. I like that was not even a little bit subtle. That wasn't even.
No.
There's that.
No, I was
Chris,
as I was studying.
turn us toward home.
As I was studying, I read another person. This is not my theory. This is commentary by Fitzmyer. His theory, and I've never heard this before. I'd never heard this until I read this. His theory is that what this shrewd manager gave up was his own commission. And his theory was that I think this is sanitizing this parable too much.
I wondered if he was trying to dress him up a little bit.
He maybe kind of dress him up, but what the theory he was giving was that this man is giving up his commission, and he's giving up the sort of immediate dollar to take care of himself in the long term with these relationships. And it makes him look a little better if he's giving up his own commission and writing that off. Because he's saying that this guy may be more like a Zacchaeus, where maybe part of his failing was taking stuff off the top, and the bills may have been higher than they were supposed to be. Now, this is only one person's theory. Most people don't agree with this. Most people think he's actually getting rid of the interest and saying that there's large sums of interest in these, and he's actually not hurting his employer too much, other than just getting rid of the interest that's on the books, and that's what most people think he's doing. But where I'm going is, I think there's all kinds of theories here, and how what's playing out in this moment. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on here.
It seems to be what attracts me is the kind of earthiness of this story. If he in fact is a dishonest manager, it seems like Jesus is. I mean, what would grip a crowd more? Presenting somebody who they normally would be thought of as somebody of questionable character, or
right.
to present some.
Well, and what's hard is in the other stories, you were talking about this earlier.
Person.
In the other stories, the person is repentant. That's what Jesus receives the sinner.
Yes. Right.
He
Right.
receives the person
Right.
that's hurting or has done wrong. This time he praises this person. And I think that's maybe why Fitzmyer sanitizes it a little bit. It's like, well, maybe he just got rid of his commission. And it's like, because Jesus is praising this person that seems to do something underhanded and takes away from his employer.
Right.
And hurting his employer. And Jesus seems to be praising this man hurting his employer.
Exactly. I mean, that's pretty despicable. If he in fact is a dishonest steward, we put people in jail.
Well, we
for
do know,
that.
it matters how you define the word dishonest. We do know, I mean, the first part of this, he's getting fired because he's done a poor job.
Right.
Right.
So whether he's dishonest or just terrible at math as an accountant or something.
Well,
right?
but
he's done
he's-
something terrible.
What I'm saying
already.
though is his right. But then going forward, if it looks like if it actually is what it seems to look like, we would put people in jail for that.
Right. Well, and that's another thing.
Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
but even, because what I've looked for through these parables are sort of the absurd moments that people go, this would never happen. And it's interesting, when I was reading some of the commentaries, it said that's a moment where everybody would look and say, this would never happen. This guy in that day should have been flogged and jailed.
Right.
To just get fired is grace and mercy on his life. And another person I was reading was saying maybe you can liken that to God. If he should have been flogged and jailed,
I see.
he's actually receiving mercy
I
to
see.
just be fired and say,
Right.
See you later. So I don't know,
that's
which way to
true.
go with that.
But it seems to be the focus of this parable is actually the actions of the steward after
Right.
he's fired, and
Yeah,
instead
not-
of,
not the-
what
not the
happens.
employer.
Right,
Right.
right.
They seems to
exactly.
be kind
He
of-
just kind of recedes into the background,
Right.
And then these actions are highlighted,
And
which.
don't get divorced.
Well, and I think he looks at the Pharisees and he goes, I know what's cooking in your little
So,
meetings.
I do kind of feel like this week's revlog has just brought more questions than answers.
agree.
But this is where we come to the moment, though. I mean, what questions do you have of this text? So, Brian, you go first here. What question do you have for us here?
Is there no length that Jesus will go to make his point? I mean, he is raising up this this person of questionable character. But really, my question actually is, how much do I sugarcoat my actions in my life and say, everything has its place, and the Lord would never do that. That begs that question right there.
Yeah.
To me, it's because Jesus says the Lord would ever do that, and in fact, I know what's on your mind.
Yeah.
So.
Aaron, what question comes to mind as you have read this?
Whose theory is correct?
Fitzmyer. Let's just clean it up and say
right.
Fitzmyer.
Yeah. In my dealings with people, whether it be in money, finances, stewardship of gifts, stewardship of just relationships, am I cutting people off at the knees? Am I treating people the way God would have me treat them? I mean, how am I stewarding what's given to me in all areas of my life?
Yeah, and I think I think that is one of the currents here, Aaron. I think you're right on with stewardship, especially if we get the explanation after when you get kind of the next paragraph, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah.
There is this sense of we are stewards, and we need to be wise stewards. If worldly managers are wise in their dealings, with whatever it is, the store they're managing or the region they're managing, whatever it is, we should even be more so wise in our management of the resources the Lord has given us.
What if the shrewd manager were in charge of a college loan program? I mean, that's debt forgiveness. That's the whole theme of today's political landscape.
How to be current.
Yeah, and supposedly there's no interest on those until you're out in the workforce,
Exactly,
right? Or whatever. Yeah. I don't know if that's where this is going, right? I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't know. So with that said, I don't know if we know what to do with it. I guess if you just come Sunday, you'll figure out how we're going to worship plan around this, right? If you'll come and Aaron has been fretting over this worship planning for weeks now, haven't you? Over how to worship plan around this text. So we'll see where the Lord leads.
Feeling sick.
But we would love to hear your thoughts both on worship planning this week, the sermon this week.
Would we, Chris?
Absolutely,
Really? Okay. All right.
absolutely. If you'd comment below.